The patrol stops at 0847 hours, November 3rd, 1967. 13 Marines from Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. Deep in the jungle west of Da Nang. They've been moving for 3 hours. Standard patrol route, check-in villages, looking for enemy activity. Routine operation. Staff Sergeant David Kramer raises his fist. The patrol halts. Everyone freezes, nobody moves, nobody breathes. Kramer is staring at something. A tree. 20 meters ahead, dense jungle, triple canopy, dark. But there's something about this tree, something wrong. He stares at it for 30 seconds. The tree doesn't move, doesn't change, just a tree. Thick trunk, vines hanging, moss. Looks like every other tree in this jungle. But Kramer's instinct is screaming, something is wrong with that tree. He whispers to his radio operator. Lance Corporal James Chen, you see that tree? 20 meters, 11 o'clock. Chen looks, says quietly, yeah, what about it? Kramer, watch it, don't take your eyes off it, tell me if it moves. Chen, it's a tree, Sarge. Kramer, just watch it. They wait. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. The tree doesn't move. Then it does. Not much, just slightly. The trunk shifts, maybe 3 inches to the left. So subtle you'd miss it if you weren't staring directly at it. But it moves. Trees don't move. Kramer yells, contact, tree, 11 o'clock. The tree explodes into motion. Vines drop away. Moss falls. What looked like tree bark is actually woven vegetation. What looked like a trunk is actually a North Vietnamese Army soldier standing completely still. Camouflaged so perfectly, he was invisible until he moved. The soldier raises his AK-47, fires. Rounds snap past Kramer's head. The Marines return fire. The soldier goes down. But now, the jungle erupts. Automatic weapons from multiple directions, muzzle flashes, dozens of them. The Marines are surrounded, they dive for cover, return fire, call for support. The firefight lasts 18 minutes. When it ends, 3 Marines are wounded. The enemy has disappeared back into the jungle, leaving behind only one body, the soldier who looked like a tree. Kramer walks over to examine him. The camouflage is incredible, real bark woven into his uniform, live moss attached, vines tied to his body and head, face painted with multiple colors matching the shadows. He was standing in plain sight, 20 meters from a US patrol, invisible, waiting. Kramer realizes that soldier was watching them. For how long? Minutes? Hours? How many times has Kramer walked past enemy soldiers standing in the jungle, completely invisible? How many times has his patrol been observed, counted, analyzed? How many times has the jungle been watching him while he thought he was hunting? And if one soldier could become invisible through camouflage, how many others are out there right now, watching, waiting? This is the story of what happened when US troops realized the enemy wasn't just hiding in the jungle. The enemy had become the jungle, could stand motionless for hours, perfectly camouflaged, watching American patrols walk past. And that, the entire American strategy, sweeping the jungle looking for the enemy, was backwards. Because the enemy wasn't running from American patrols. The enemy was watching them, learning their patterns, setting ambushes. Winning through observation. If you want stories about how wars are won through tactics nobody expects, where the side that seems weaker finds ways to turn weakness into advantage, hit subscribe right now. Because what Kramer discovered on November 3rd, 1967 will change how his company operates, will force new tactics, will create new training. And what they learn from captured soldiers who perfected this camouflage technique will reveal that the North Vietnamese Army has a sophisticated system. Observers who stand motionless for 8 to 12 hours, watching American movements, radioing positions, coordinating ambushes, turning the jungle into a surveillance network that Americans walk through without knowing they're being watched every step. 6 months earlier, May 1967, North Vietnamese Army training camp, Quang Nam Province.
Senior Lieutenant Nguyen Van Tan is teaching a camouflage class. 42 soldiers, all volunteers for reconnaissance duties, all being trained in advanced infiltration and observation techniques. Tan has been fighting Americans for 3 years. He's survived because he's learned something. Americans are predictable. They move in patterns. They use the same routes. They conduct patrols at the same times. They're loud. They're visible. They announce their presence. And most importantly, Americans never look closely at the jungle. They scan. They sweep. They look for movement, but they don't examine, don't study, don't notice details, which means if you can become part of the jungle, truly become indistinguishable from the environment, you can stand in plain sight and Americans will walk right past you. Thang demonstrates.
He takes a soldier, Private Tran Van Minh, 22 years old, and spends 90 minutes camouflaging him. First layer, face paint, not simple green and black, complex patterns, 6 different colors. Light green for areas that catch sun, dark green for shadows, brown for tree bark textures, yellow-brown for moss, black for deep shadows. The patterns match the jungle at this elevation, this season, this time of day. Second layer, uniform modification. Min's uniform is already green, but Tan adds texture. He weaves real bark strips into the fabric, attaches live moss that will stay alive for 6 to 8 hours if kept moist, ties vines to arms, legs, torso. The vines hang naturally, moving slightly with any breeze, exactly like vines on trees. Third layer, equipment camouflage. Min's rifle, ammunition pouches,
Canteen, everything that might reflect light or show artificial shape, wrapped in vegetation, covered in bark, made organic. Fourth layer, positioning. Than shows Min how to stand, not rigid, not obviously human-shaped, slightly bent, weight shifted, one leg bearing most of his weight so he can stand for hours without moving. Arms positioned naturally like branches, head tilted slightly, face angled down so eyes don't reflect light. Final layer, stillness, complete motionless, not just standing still, complete absence of motion, no fidgeting, no weight shifting, no scratching, no blinking visible to observers, breathing slow and shallow, become the tree. When Than finishes, Min stands against a tree trunk. Than steps back 20 meters, says to the other 41 soldiers, "Find him." The soldiers scan the tree line. They look, search, examine. Nobody can find Min. He's there, 20 meters away, in plain sight, invisible. Tang walks the soldiers closer, 10 meters, 5 meters, 3 meters. Finally, when they're standing 2 meters away, they can see him, but only because they know someone is there. If they didn't know, they'd walk right past. Tan says, "This is how you survive Americans. You become the jungle. You stand still while they move. You watch while they patrol. You learn their patterns. And when you know enough, you coordinate attack. But first, you must learn to disappear." For the next 3 weeks, the 42 soldiers train in camouflage and concealment every day, 8 to 12 hours. They practice becoming trees, becoming bushes, becoming ground. They learn to stay motionless for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours.
They learn to breathe so slowly that chest movement is invisible. They learn to blink only when Americans aren't looking directly at them. They learn to ignore insects crawling on them, pain in their legs from standing still, thirst, hunger, the need to urinate. They learn to become part of the jungle. They also learn observation, what to watch for, American patrol patterns, how many soldiers, what weapons, what equipment, radio antennas indicating officers, maps indicating navigation, medical equipment indicating corpsmen. They learn to count, categorize, assess, and remember everything they see, and they learn to communicate. Hand signals so subtle they're invisible to Americans, silent radio procedures, how to coordinate multiple observers watching the same American unit from different angles.
How to compile observation reports after Americans pass. How to radio information to headquarters without being detected. By end of training, all 42 can stand motionless for 8 hours. All 42 can camouflage themselves so perfectly that instructors can't find them from 5 meters. All 42 can watch American patrols and compile detailed observation reports. They deploy in June 1967, assigned to observation posts throughout Quang Nam Province. Their mission: watch American movements, learn patrol patterns, identify weak points, coordinate ambushes. Private Tran Van Minh is assigned to Route 9 corridor west of Da Nang. His specific assignment: observe American patrol routes, count patrol frequency, identify standard practices, watch for predictable patterns. His technique: each morning before dawn,
He moves to an observation position, usually 200-300 meters from a trail Americans use. He camouflages himself completely, then stands motionless, watching, waiting. When American patrols pass, Minh observes everything. Count, usually 12-15 soldiers, weapons, M16 rifles, 1 or 2 M60 machine guns, sometimes M79 grenade launchers, equipment, radios, medical packs, extra ammunition, formation, usually single file, 5 meter spacing, speed, approximately 1-2 kilometers per hour in jungle, patrol duration, usually 4 to 6 hours before returning to base. Patterns emerge quickly. Americans patrol the same routes, same times of day, same formations, same procedures. They're consistent, predictable, and they never see Minh. Not once in 4 months does an American patrol spot him. He's there, watching them, sometimes 30 meters away. They walk right past, never notice. Minh compiles reports, sends them to his commanding officer. The reports get consolidated with observations from other watchers. The picture becomes clear. Americans are operating on a predictable schedule. They can be tracked, anticipated, ambushed. By October 1967, the NVA has comprehensive intelligence on American patrol patterns throughout Quang Nam Province. They know which routes Americans use, which times they patrol, how many soldiers in each patrol, what weapons they carry, where they're vulnerable. They use this intelligence to set ambushes, sophisticated ambushes, not random attacks, planned operations based on detailed observation. They know when American patrols will arrive at specific locations, know what formations they'll be in, know where officers will be positioned,
know where machine gunners will be, know exactly when and where to strike for maximum effect. American casualties increase, ambushes become more effective. The NVA seems to know where Americans will be before they get there. American commanders are confused. How does the enemy know our patrol routes? How do they know our timing? How do they coordinate ambushes so effectively? The answer: they're watching all the time. Invisible observers standing in the jungle, counting, learning, reporting. But Americans don't know this, don't understand. Keep patrolling the same routes, same times, same formations, thinking they're hunting the enemy, not realizing they're being hunted, until November 3rd, 1967, when Staff Sergeant Kramer spots a tree that moves. November 3rd, 1967, 10 fighting hours after the firefight.
Kramer's patrol has called for medevac, 3 wounded Marines being evacuated. The one NVA body remains where it fell. Kramer examines it carefully. The camouflage is extraordinary, professional, not improvised. This soldier was trained extensively. The bark weaving is intricate. The moss attachment shows knowledge of keeping vegetation alive. The vine placement is strategic, covering human outline. The face paint is complex, 6 different colors creating 3-dimensional depth. And most telling, the soldier's position when killed. He was standing, not prone, not sitting, standing, which means he'd been standing there for extended period, watching, observing. Kramer checks the soldier's equipment, finds a small notebook written in Vietnamese. Kramer can't read it, but he can see what it contains: times, numbers, sketches. Looks like observation logs. He bags everything: the notebook, the soldier's weapon, samples of his camouflage materials, his pack contents, everything. Sends it all back for intelligence analysis. That night, Kramer briefs his company commander, Captain Robert Walsh, shows him photographs of the camouflaged soldier, describes how invisible he was, how close the patrol came without seeing him. Walsh is skeptical, says, one soldier, could be isolated case, sniper waiting in ambush. Kramer, sir, his notebook looked like observation logs, times and numbers, like he was recording our patrols. Walsh, let intelligence analyze it. If there's something there, they'll find it. Intelligence analyzes the notebook, takes 3 days. The translation comes back November 6th. The notebook contains 63 entries. Each entry documents an American patrol: date, time, location, count, weapons, direction of movement. The entries span 4 months, June through October 1967. Each entry is detailed: July 12th, 0730 hours, Route 9, Checkpoint 7, 13 Marines, 2 M60s, moving west, speed, slow, officer present, radio antenna, patrol duration, estimated 4 to 5 hours. August 3rd, 1430 hours, Route 9, Checkpoint 5, 15 Marines, 1 M79, 2 M60s, moving east, speed, moderate, medical pack visible, return patrol from western sector. 63 entries, 4 months of observations, all from one soldier, all documenting American patrols, all showing patterns, timing, composition. The intelligence assessment is alarming. Subject was conducting systematic surveillance of US patrol operations. Entries show detailed observation and professional intelligence collection. Recommend immediate assessment of whether additional enemy observers are operating in area. Enemy may have comprehensive intelligence on US patrol patterns. Walsh calls company meeting, November 7th. All platoon leaders and squad leaders, shows them the notebook, shows them the photographs of the camouflaged soldier, explains what intelligence found. Walsh, gentlemen, we have a problem. The enemy isn't just ambushing us randomly, they're watching us, learning our patterns. This soldier observed our patrols for 4 months, documented everything. We never spotted him, which raises the question, how many others are out there watching us right now? The room is silent.
Every squad leader thinking the same thing. How many times have I walked past an enemy observer without knowing it? Walsh continues. Effective immediately, new patrol procedures. First, no repeated routes. Every patrol takes different route, no predictable patterns. Second, no predictable timing. Patrol start times vary by at least 2 hours. Third, visual observation mandatory. Every tree, every bush, every shadow gets examined. We're not just scanning for movement anymore. We're looking for things that seem wrong, shapes that don't fit, colors that don't match. Anything unusual gets investigated. Fourth, counter-surveillance. We assume we're being watched on every patrol. We act accordingly. Over the next week, Echo Company implements new tactics. Patrols vary routes, vary timing, move more carefully, examine the jungle more closely.
And they start finding them, the watchers. November 9th, different patrol, different area. Lance Corporal Michael Torres spots something, a bush that seems too perfect, too symmetrical. He watches it for 5 minutes. The bush doesn't move, but something about it bothers him. He throws a rock at it. The bush moves, reveals an NVA soldier perfectly camouflaged. Firefight erupts. Soldier is killed. Search of his position reveals observation notes similar to the first soldier's. November 12th. Another patrol. Corporal James Wade notices a tree that has moss only on one side. Trees in this jungle typically have moss all around. He examines closer, realizes the moss is artificial, attached to a soldier. The soldier sees he's spotted, tries to run, gets captured alive. First intelligence source.
The captured soldier, Senior Lieutenant Phan Van Duk, 28 years old, is interrogated. Initially refuses to talk, but after 3 days, military intelligence breaks him. He talks. He describes the observation program: systematic, organized, sophisticated, trained observers deployed throughout American operational areas. Their job: watch American movements, document patterns, report to coordination headquarters. The intelligence gets compiled, analyzed, used to plan ambushes. Duke describes his training: 3 weeks of camouflage instruction, learning to become invisible, learning to stand motionless for 8 to 12 hours, learning what to observe, how to record, how to report. He describes his typical day: move to observation position before dawn, camouflage completely, stand motionless, watch American patrols, count soldiers, identify weapons.
Note timing, watch patterns. After Americans pass, move to secondary position, rest, eat, compile report, radio to headquarters, sleep, repeat next day. He describes how many observers, at least 40 in Quang Nam Province, probably more. Each observer assigns specific routes or areas, all reporting to central coordination. He describes success rate. Americans almost never spot observers. Maybe 1 in 100 patrols notices something wrong, usually too late. Observer escapes or gets killed before being captured. The interrogation report is explosive. It proves the NVA has been conducting systematic surveillance of American operations for months. Proves they have comprehensive intelligence on patrol patterns. Proves American tactics are compromised. The report goes up the chain, reaches division headquarters. Triggers comprehensive response. November 20th, 1967. Division headquarters issues new operational directive: enemy intelligence collection operations. The directive confirms enemy is conducting systematic surveillance of US operations, orders all units to implement anti-surveillance measures, mandates patrol route variation, requires timing, unpredictability, emphasizes detailed visual observation of terrain, establishes counter-surveillance training for all infantry units. The directive includes training materials, how to spot camouflaged observers, what to look for, shapes that seem too regular or too perfect, vegetation that doesn't match surrounding patterns, moss or vines arranged too symmetrically, shadows that don't align with light direction, subtle movements in areas that should be still, anything that triggers instinct that something is wrong. The directive also includes captured photographs of camouflaged NVA observers, shows how effective their techniques are, shows how easy it is to walk past them without noticing. Units throughout I Corps begin implementing new procedures, patrols become less predictable, soldiers start examining the jungle more carefully, counter-surveillance becomes standard practice, and they start finding more observers. Between November 20th and December 31st, 1967, US forces in I Corps find and engage 23 camouflaged NVA observers. 14 killed in firefights, 9 captured alive. All confirm the existence of systematic surveillance operations. The captured observers provide more intelligence, describe training locations, name commanding officers, describe communication procedures, reveal the full scope of the program. By January 1968, US military intelligence has comprehensive picture. NVA has deployed approximately 150-200 trained observers throughout NASCOR, all conducting surveillance, all reporting to coordination centers, all providing intelligence for ambush planning. The revelation changes everything. American tactics shift, patrols become unpredictable, routes vary constantly, timing randomizes, visual observation intensifies, counter-surveillance becomes doctrine. The results are measurable. Ambush effectiveness drops, NVA coordination degrades.
American casualties from ambushes decreased significantly. Data comparison, August-October 1967, before counter-surveillance. Average 18 ambush casualties per month in I Corps. January-March 1968, after counter-surveillance. Average 7 ambush casualties per month in I Corps, 60% reduction, because Americans stopped being predictable, stopped following patterns, started actively hunting the watchers. But the program continues. The NVA adapts. Observers become more careful, use better camouflage, stand farther from trails, watch from elevated positions, reduce observation time to minimize exposure. The war becomes a competition. Americans trying to spot observers, NVA trying to remain invisible, each side adapting to the other's tactics. Private Tran Van Minh, the observer assigned to Route 9 corridor, continues operations through December 1967. He knows Americans are now hunting watchers, becomes more cautious, changes positions daily, never uses same spot twice, reduces observation time from 8 hours to 4 hours, positions himself 400 meters from trails instead of 200. But on January 15, 1968, his luck runs out. A Marine patrol from Echo Company, Staff Sergeant Kramer's company, is sweeping an area west of Da Nang. They're using new tactics, moving unpredictably, stopping frequently to observe the jungle, looking for anything unusual. Lance Corporal Chen, Kramer's radio operator, spots something. A tree that has moss arranged in a pattern. The pattern is subtle, but it bothers him. He alerts Kramer. Kramer observes for 10 minutes. The tree doesn't move. But something about it feels wrong. The moss pattern is too neat, too organized. Kramer orders his patrol to surround the tree. They move quietly, form semicircle 50 meters out, all weapons trained on the tree. Kramer yells, "We know you're there. Come out slowly or we fire." The tree doesn't move. No response. Kramer, "We will fire. You have 10 seconds. Come out now." At 8 seconds, the tree moves. Moss drops away. Camouflage falls. Tran Van Minh steps away from the tree trunk, hands raised, rifle left against the tree. He's surrendering.
Marines secure him, search his position, find his observation notebook, find his radio, find his camouflage materials. All get sent to intelligence. Min is interrogated. Unlike Senior Lieutenant Duke, Min talks immediately. He's tired, scared, knows the program is compromised, tells everything.
He describes 4 months of observations, July through November 1967. 63 patrols documented, all American, all Echo Company routes. He knows their patterns better than they know themselves. He describes the turning point, November 3rd, when his fellow observer on Route 9, the soldier Kramer spotted, was killed. How that changed everything, how Americans suddenly started hunting watchers, how dangerous the job became. He describes the training, the 3 weeks learning to disappear, learning to become the jungle, the techniques, the discipline required. He describes why he's surrendering, says, "You're too good now, you learned, you watch for us, you change patterns, you hunt us. The job became impossible, better to surrender than die invisible in the jungle." His interrogation report confirms everything previous captures revealed.
Adds more details, provides names of other observers, describes coordination procedures, reveals communication networks. The intelligence is comprehensive. By February 1968, US military has destroyed most of the NVA observer network in I Corps, killed or captured over 60 observers, forced others to abandon positions, degraded the system significantly. The NVA tries to rebuild, trains new observers, deploys them more carefully, but American forces are now actively hunting them. The new observers don't last long. The program never regains its effectiveness. By mid-1968, the NVA largely abandons systematic observation in I Corps. Too costly, too many observers lost, too little intelligence gained. American unpredictability makes observation less valuable. The war shifts, becomes more fluid, less predictable. Ambush rates decline. American casualties from ambushes drop significantly. The advantage gained by NVA surveillance evaporates. In 1973, after the war, the US military conducts comprehensive analysis, studies the NVA observation program, documents what was learned, incorporates lessons into training. Key findings: enemy observation was systematic and sophisticated. Camouflage techniques were highly effective. American predictability was exploited successfully. Counter-surveillance measures were effective once implemented. Tactical adaptability is essential in counterinsurgency operations. The findings are incorporated into infantry doctrine. Counter-surveillance becomes standard training. Patrol unpredictability becomes doctrine. Visual observation techniques are refined. In 1995, Vietnamese military publishes history of the observation program, includes interviews with surviving observers, describes the program's success and eventual failure. From Vietnamese perspective, the program was highly successful. June-October 1967 provided valuable intelligence for ambush coordination. Casualty rate among observers was initially low, approximately 5%. Americans adapted quickly after November 1967. Casualty rate among observers increased dramatically, approximately 40% by January 1968. Program was largely abandoned by mid-1968 due to high losses and reduced effectiveness. The Vietnamese history includes interview with Tran Van Minh, the observer who surrendered to Kramer's patrol. Minh describes his experience. "The first 4 months were easy. Americans never saw us. We stood in plain sight, watched them walk past, counted them, studied them. They were predictable, easy to observe, easy to ambush. Then in November, something changed. One of our observers was killed.
Americans found his notebook. Suddenly they started hunting us. They stopped being predictable. They looked closely at the jungle. They examined everything. They found things we thought were invisible. By January, the job became suicide. Every observation position was dangerous. Americans were everywhere, looking for us, hunting us. We couldn't stay hidden. The jungle that protected us became a trap. Better to surrender than die. The Vietnamese history concludes, the observation program succeeded brilliantly until Americans understood it existed. Once they adapted, the program failed. This demonstrates the importance of tactical secrecy and the danger of enemy adaptation. Success in unconventional warfare requires continuous innovation. Static tactics,
Even successful ones, eventually fail. In 2008, US and Vietnamese military historians hold joint conference on Vietnam War tactics. One session focuses on the observation program. American historian Dr. Sarah Mitchell presents findings on US response to NVA surveillance, shows casualty data, demonstrates how counter-surveillance reduced ambush effectiveness. Vietnamese historian Dr. Nguyen Van Than presents NVA perspective, describes training program, explains tactics, discusses why programs succeeded initially and failed later. During Q&A, Staff Sergeant David Kramer, retired now 68 years old, attends as guest speaker. He's invited to discuss the November 3, 1967 incident that discovered the program. Kramer describes spotting the camouflaged soldier, describes the shock of realizing someone had been watching his patrols for months. Describes the change in tactics that followed. An audience member asks, "When you spotted that soldier on November 3rd, what gave him away? What made you notice?" Kramer thinks, then says, "Instinct. Something felt wrong. The tree looked too perfect, too organized. In natural jungle, everything is chaotic, random, but this tree had order, symmetry. It was subtle, but once I noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. That's what gave him away. He was too perfect. Nature isn't perfect." Another audience member, a Vietnamese veteran who served as an observer, asks, "When we watched your patrols, did you feel it? Did you sense you were being observed?" Kramer, Sometimes I'd get a feeling like being watched. I'd look around, never saw anything, but the feeling was there. I ignored it, thought it was just combat stress, paranoia. Now I know I was right. You were there, watching. I was feeling your eyes on me, but I couldn't see you. The Vietnamese veteran nods, says, "We were taught to project no presence, to become part of the environment so completely that we weren't there. But you sensed us anyway. Human instinct is powerful. It knows when it's being watched, even when eyes can't confirm it." The conference concludes that the observation program was tactically innovative but operationally unsustainable once discovered. The NVA's mistake was creating a pattern that Americans eventually detected. Once the pattern was understood, American adaptation was swift and effective. In 2015, the US Army publishes updated field manual on counter-surveillance operations, includes case study on NVA observation program, uses it as example of enemy adaptation and importance of tactical unpredictability. The manual includes photographs from 1967, shows camouflaged NVA observers, demonstrates how effective their techniques were, uses them as training examples for identifying concealed enemies. One photograph shows the soldier Kramer spotted on November 3rd. The caption, "NVA observer killed November 3rd, 1967. Camouflage was so effective, he was undetected at 20 meters until he moved." This incident led to discovery of systematic NVA surveillance operations throughout E Corps.
The photograph is used in training. Soldiers study it, learn to recognize camouflage patterns, learn to spot things that seem wrong, learn that the enemy isn't always obvious. Sometimes the enemy is a tree that doesn't quite fit, a bush that's too perfect, a shadow that moves slightly. In 2018, documentary is produced, The Watchers, How North Vietnam Surveilled American Forces. The documentary includes interviews with American veterans who encountered observers, interviews with Vietnamese veterans who served as observers, photographs and video of camouflage techniques, analysis of the program's effectiveness and failure, discussion of how it changed American tactics. The documentary includes extended interview with Tran Van Minh, now 73 years old. He demonstrates camouflage techniques, shows how he became invisible, discusses the psychological toll of standing motionless for hours, describes the fear of being discovered. Minh: standing still for 8 hours is torture. Your legs ache, your back hurts, insects crawl on you, you can't move, can't scratch, can't shift weight. You become the tree doesn't move.
So you don't move, but inside you're screaming. Your body wants to move. Your mind wants to move, but you don't. You can't. Because moving means death. The documentary also interviews Staff Sergeant Kramer. He discusses the November 3rd encounter, describes how it changed his understanding of the battlefield. Kramer: before that day I thought we were hunting the enemy. After that day I realized the enemy was hunting us. We weren't the predators. We were being watched, studied, analyzed. The jungle wasn't neutral ground we moved through. The jungle was enemy territory. Every tree could be a soldier. Every bush could be watching. We weren't alone out there. We were never alone. They were always there, watching, waiting. The documentary's conclusion: the NVA observation program was one of the most sophisticated intelligence operations of the Vietnam War. It succeeded because it exploited American predictability and overcame through American adaptability. The program demonstrates that tactical advantage in warfare is temporary. Success requires continuous innovation. Once the enemy understands your tactics, you must evolve or lose. Today, the observation program is studied in military academies worldwide, used as example of asymmetric warfare, used to teach importance of unpredictability, used to demonstrate how small unit tactics can provide strategic advantage, and it's used to teach soldiers the battlefield is never empty, the enemy is always watching, the jungle is always watching you back. That's the lesson from November 3rd, 1967. The day US troops realized the jungle was watching them, the day they discovered that invisible soldiers had been observing them for months, the day they understood that the enemy wasn't running from them, the enemy was studying them. Staff Sergeant David Kramer spotted a tree that moved. That one observation changed how America fought the war, changed tactical doctrine, changed patrol procedures, changed training. Because sometimes the most important thing you can see is the thing that doesn't want to be seen. The soldier who becomes a tree, the observer who disappears, the jungle that watches you back. Kramer saw it, recognized it, reported it, and because he did, hundreds of American soldiers survived ambushes that would have killed them. Because once you know the jungle is watching, you can watch back, you can adapt, you can survive. That's the story. The day the jungle became the enemy, the day Americans learned they were being watched, the day one soldier's instinct revealed an entire surveillance network, and the day that changed everything.